Right, welcome back to the Jack Ward Football Podcast and welcome to the time of the year where we break down this year's League One playoff final between Sheffield Wednesday and Barnsley. It's going to be a really interesting game. I can already feel it. Let me know in the comment section who you think is going to progress to, this time, of course, the Championship. Let's break it down and tactically preview this year's League One playoff final. So we begin by looking at the story of the semi-finals. It's fair to say both teams had very different semi-final encounters. For Barnsley, a much more traditional battle between themselves and Bolton. I thought that away draw in the first leg was really important and I think made the difference. Defensively, really strong going forward, took their chances when they came along. I thought Bolton were quite flat in that second leg, but Barnsley, they got the job done at Oakwell and progressed with a 2-1 aggregate win. I'd say across the two games, Barnsley deserved to progress through to the final. And for Sheffield Wednesday, I think we've covered their semi-final enough on this podcast. But in short, an utterly embarrassing first leg defeat 4-0 to Peterborough United. And then in the second leg, they provided one of football's best ever comebacks, coming back from 4 goals down to win on penalties. Incredible stuff. Two very different routes to Wembley, but I think equally very justified. So we're looking at the last meetings between these two clubs this season. The first game in match week 7, so very early on. Sheffield Wednesday 0, Barnsley 2. The XG was 0.61 to 1.24. A convincing Barnsley win at Hillsborough, with Sheffield Wednesday not really offering much at all. A few moments for Wednesday here and there, but never really did they get going. Barnsley were prolific in front of goal and scored both of their 2 big chances on the day. It's important to mention that was game week 7, so quite a few changes when it comes to lineups, but still probably looking back now, that was one of Barnsley's most satisfying wins of the season, especially of course at Hillsborough, where not many sides went on to win at that ground. In the most recent game, it finished Barnsley 4, Sheffield Wednesday 2. The XG was 1.50 to 3.12. This was one of the most entertaining games of the season, and Oakwell was bouncing on the night. When looking at XG, Wednesday had the better chances and just struggled to convert them. It was a front-footed, high-intensity game of football with so much entertainment. Barnsley had 5 big chances, while Wednesday had 6, just showing how open and attacking that game really was. But ultimately, when looking at both of those games, Micheal Duff and Barnsley have done really well against Wednesday this season. Will this psychological advantage make a difference at Wembley? I'm not sure. Only time will tell, but it's fair to say Barnsley were better than Sheffield Wednesday when playing against each other this season. So when comparing the two teams from a tactical perspective, you can see on the screen right now some very interesting graphics. These graphics are on the website The Analyst, so definitely go and check them out. The link to their website will be in the description below. They provided these fantastic visual insights into how we can compare these two teams. So these graphics show where these sides have the most touches of the ball across the season compared to their opposition. On first glance, they look very similar, but it does show Wednesday's slightly more control in the defensive third. In fact, Sheffield Wednesday have conceded 10 less goals than Barnsley this season. But sometimes first glance is important, and when comparing the different areas of domination, both sides are extremely similar. And this graphic, also on the website The Analyst, describes and visualises the different styles of play that the two teams adopt. Sheffield Wednesday play more slowly and patiently, with more passes per sequence. As for Barnsley, they play with much more of an intensity, with less passes per sequence, and an aim to play directly at a quicker pace. I also want to touch on pressing because I think that's going to be such an interesting factor in the game on Monday. Both sides are not afraid to press, with Sheffield Wednesday scoring the most goals from high turnovers in the league. 9 goals have been converted from team sequence pressures. For Barnsley, it's a close second, with 8 goals coming from that style of organised high turnover. So next up, let's take a look at some potential lineups that Micheal Duff and Darren Moore could field for this game on Bank Holiday Monday. So beginning with Sheffield Wednesday, what does Darren Moore do when it comes to team selection? He's got such a huge team selection headache. I think he's got 2 options. He's got, you're the boys that got us here, go and finish the job. team selection, if you like, and then he's got the completely different game selection. Both of those have pros and cons. The first one, like I said, it's all about picking the same team that provided that fantastic comeback against Peterborough last week, or he approached this game with his selection as a completely different one, and he makes changes to suit this match. But of course, if he's going to do that, he's going to have to drop at least one player from that team that I thought were absolutely exquisite last week. So it's going to be a real challenge. And when putting together some potential lineups and lineups that I'd go with, I really struggled, especially when it comes to Wednesday. Of course, we will touch on Barnsley in just a second. And of course, it's important to mention the factors and the circumstances are completely different as well. For Wednesday, they're not chasing a 4-goal deficit, it's only one leg. I think this game has to be treated as a completely separate one because this game will be played completely differently. For me, this Wednesday side needs more defensive protection because they will not play the same way as they did against Peterborough. And the bottom line is, as we've just discussed, they don't have to. Let's highlight this midfield as it is now because for me, I think it needs more defensive protection. And the obvious addition is Will Vaulks. Now, when you add a player like Will Vaulks in, you're going to have to drop somebody. And that's where this is extremely difficult because dropping a player from the lineup that you can see on the screen right now, which is the one that played against Peterborough in that second leg, is almost impossible. But I think when highlighting that midfield as it is with Phillips, Connell and Kane being that trio for Barnsley that I expect to see on Monday and Bannan and Palmer, who played together last Thursday, I think that midfield isn't strong enough for Wednesday. I really don't. I think Bannan is fantastic. Everybody knows how I feel about Barry Bannan. I think Palmer played unbelievably well last week. But I think that midfield could be an issue. And that battle could be a real issue. I think in transition, they're going to struggle. And Barnsley could take complete control. And if they do that, the game could easily be lost with that factor. Getting overrun and outnumbered in the central area will be the difference, I think, with winning and losing this game. But Liam Palmer can't be dropped. Barry Bannan won't be dropped, and he'll still play in that midfield. So this is where the headache really starts to hurt. If Palmer can't be dropped, which I completely agree with, he absolutely can't be, what do we do? How does Will Vaulks get in this team? Because I think he's got to, because I don't think that midfield is strong enough to withstand that Barnsley pressure and midfield presence. So I've almost written down here, I don't have an answer. I've got the alternatives, Vaulks for Iorfa, and you put Palmer back at centre-back, and then, of course, you bring Vaulks in to that midfield. But Iorfa, I wouldn't want to change that back three. I think Iorfa did really well against Mason Clark last week. Defensively, he's tall, strong, and that back three together worked really well. You could look at Paterson. You could bring Palmer back out to right wing-back, drop Paterson. Vaulks comes into that midfield, but I think, again, Paterson was unbelievable. For me, man of the match by country mile. I say country mile with a pinch of salt because there's a lot of candidates, but Paterson was that good. And also, Paterson showed that he is not defensively a liability. He had fantastic numbers from a defensive area. He won the most tackles out of any other player on the pitch. Naturally a striker. I heard actually, thanks to the comment section, that Paterson has in his career before played as a right back and right wing back, so that does make sense. But I thought he was fantastic. So dropping him is an option, but for me, not a good one. And not a viable one, I think. And then you could go Gregory. You could bring Windass up top. Maybe Gregory out of the team for Vaulks. Bannan plays as a number 10. You play a two of Palmer and Vaulks with Bannan as a number 10 and Gregory and Smith as your front line. But again, you're dropping somebody with like Gregory who pressed, worked his socks off and scored a goal on Thursday. So this is a real problem. It's a real issue. I really don't know what Darren Moore is going to do. If I had to do one of those things, I would maybe lean towards the idea of dropping Gregory, maybe to give him maybe a little bit of an option off the bench. Darren Moore, I think that could work. I don't think you can drop Smith. You could do. You wouldn't drop Windass. You obviously wouldn't drop Bannan. I don't think you can drop Palmer. Paterson is so hard to drop. But I think the problem there is it needs a bit more organisation. And it will be a less frantic game. So it's going to be a real challenge. He's got such a headache. I don't know what's going to happen. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're a Wednesday fan what you do. Do you just go with the team that played against Peterborough? But I feel as though that could be a bit of a problem and you could get exposed and look back and go, did we tactically prepare in the right game? And were we too emotionally invested in a game that, if this doesn't go the way you want to, could mean absolutely nothing? So it's going to be tough for Darren Moore. He's also in a really tricky situation where there's an argument to say that anything he does is wrong with this issue he has in front of him. So tough. For Barnsley, I think in my eyes the team does pick itself. You can see in front of you here, this is the side that went unchanged in both of the semi-finals against Bolton. I don't see Micheal Duff changing this lineup at all going into this one. Anderson, their captain, played 19 minutes, which is a huge plus because he was a doubt going into especially that first game against Bolton. So having their captain and skipper, leader of that back line, fit and ready to go is a massive bonus. I think Micheal Duff does have a much easier job when selecting his team. He does have squad options, so he can change it. He could go with Norwood, he could go with Watters and change and freshen up that front two, but I don't think it needs freshening up. I think that front two is the best available to him. You wouldn't see him change that midfield, well, 3, but again, with the wing-backs and Cadden, that can be made into a 5. You wouldn't see him change those wide options, and that back 3, again, is the strongest in my back 3 he has available to him. So I think, although he does have options from the bench, he wouldn't change it for the starting 11. When it comes to key battles, with both of these sides playing very similar formations, I expect to see quite a few 1v1 battles, both in the middle and out wide. Luca Connell and Barry Bannan, I think, are two players I've spoken quite a lot about in recent weeks. I think in this game are going to make a really interesting duel. Connell's job will be to stop the creative nature of Bannan and then start build-up play for Barnsley to attack from deep. That Barnsley back 3 against the physicality of Wednesday's front line, whatever it will be, of course there could be changes to it, will be fascinating. Anderson extremely strong in the air this season, and of course we know the qualities of Smith. He won the most aerial duels out of any other player on Thursday night, so that's going to be a really interesting battle there. But like I said, it could be anybody because Gregory could start, Windass could start as part of that front 2, and they could make changes if they do want to make changes to that lineup. Again, completely different to team selection. But I think Anderson and whoever Wednesday go with, there's physicality in both of those areas. So it wouldn't be a tactical preview without a prediction at the end of it. I think when predicting games of this magnitude, it's important to mention who can handle the pressure. That is the big question for me. Sheffield Wednesday will be on top of the world right now, and also know they can't be complacent and stay on cloud 9. For Barnsley, they've had a challenging but much calmer route to the final, but they'll be confident in their ability, both progressing, of course, through to the final, but also doing the double over Wednesday already this season. I can see this game going to extra time, but with goals, and if I'm going to predict a final score, I'd probably go 2-1 Wednesday, but 1-1 after normal time. Only time will tell. Thank you very much for watching. Please do leave a like and subscribe. Let me know, of course, in the comment section down below your prediction for this game. It's going to be very, very interesting. Good luck to both of these sides. Both Wednesday and Barnsley, I think, do deserve to go up, but only one will be promoted to the Championship. Until next time, I've been Jack. This has been the Jack Ward Football Podcast, and I will see you all very, very soon. Take care.